Hi, I'm Larry Bauer, Chief Executive Officer of the Family Medicine Education Consortium, and we are very pleased today to be hosting this workshop that Dr. Tony Kuzel will be leading. We've been talking about this for quite a number of months, and as a matter of fact, I think since back at the NAPCRAG meeting in New Orleans back early in 2019. So we're really excited that folks are with us today. I think there will be some other people joining as as time moves along here. So Dr. Kuzel, turning things over to you.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Tony Kuzel, and I'm in the Department of Family Medicine and Population Health at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond. This virtual workshop is part of something called the Building Research Capacity Initiative. And I just wanted to give those who aren't familiar with it a very brief history. Several years back, leadership of the North American Primary Care Research Group and the Association of Departments of Family Medicine came together and said, what can we do collaboratively to help support the development of scholarship and research in academic units in family medicine in the US as well as Canada. So that's how Building Research Capacity came about. It has three sort of elements, if you will. One we call curriculum, in which we have at major meetings such as STFM, NAPCRAG, and the ADFM meeting, sessions devoted towards helping academic units build this kind of capacity. A second approach is through consultations, and they can either be in person or virtual, probably a lot more virtual until the vaccine is widely available. And we've been doing that for a couple, 3 years now. And then there's a fellowship for an individual who wants to have special mentoring through the BRC program. And that's also been running for the last couple of years. So I see this event as kind of a hybrid in the sense that we want this to be a facilitated discussion for you who signed up and are here as participants to learn from the discussion and to just make decisions on action steps that you're going to take when you get back. Well, actually, probably in your academic unit if you're not at home, as a matter of fact. I keep slipping on the fact that we're not getting on airplanes and heading back home after this. This is the first time it's been part of the Family Medicine Education Consortium, so we're very pleased, and we're grateful to Larry Bauer as well as staff from FMEC. I know Jennifer Stamper was helping, and Denise Steele is with us today, who will help in important ways. Now, when we first designed this, we had in mind options for people to select sort of areas of emphasis. We've been doing workshops to try to figure out how can we understand what are the themes or the issues that are relevant for building research and scholarship capacity. And through those workshops, we came up with 5 different sort of sub areas. You should have gotten materials that laid those out in advance. We had hoped to get from participants what they wanted to focus on, including if they said, I'm not ready to talk about leadership because I'm just getting started, or resources sounds interesting, but I'm just getting started, and that's where I need to be in the conversation. So we created a 6th option for people who were just getting started. I will tell you that when we got the registration list for this session, there were fully 16 people who said that they would be here, and I only see 4 folks who are participants and who are not either facilitators or staff. So I'm going to have to, I think, radically change what our process plan was going to be, because if we truly have only 4 people, we don't need to have it as subdivided and structured as we'd originally envisioned. Denise, I'm going to let you off the hook and say that we're not going to sort, because if we truly have only 4 people, we're going to all just stay together in this somewhat smaller group than we anticipated.
I
but
think
nonetheless,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
that makes sense. That makes sense
Okay,
with the site.
so I want to have folks, since we have the amount of time that we have, let's go down the list, and I'll just have people briefly introduce themselves, and then we're going to have particular attention to those of you that are with us today as participants who we want to support in having a discussion that's going to be informative to you and help you to develop at least one action step as a result of the discussion today that will help move your academic unit towards greater scholarship or research. So I've already introduced myself. I'm just going to go down the list that I see on my screen. And Denise, briefly, could you talk about your role?
Sure. Hi, I'm Denise Steele. I've been with the FMEC for the past 7 years. I know my main role with FMEC, I manage the registration and membership registration for the annual meeting. So I feel like my role is ever evolving, and especially with 2020, you know, we're kind of learning all new things with Zoom and new ways to connect. So I kind of like continuously learning. So, but it's all good, and I'm happy to be here today. So.
Okay. I'm going to skip you, Larry, since you've already said hello. I see the next name is Amy Crawford Faulcher.
O'Shea. Tony, you should know me. I was a Fairfax resident back in the 90s. So.
My goodness.
Hi, everybody. I'm Amy Crawford Fauché. I am in Pittsburgh at Allegheny Health Network. I am also the immediate past president of FMEC, so I'm intrigued by this. I've just moved from being a program director into vice chair for the Primary Care Institute here. And that's, you know, research is not something we've ever really focused on beyond the QA projects that happen, you know, within our residency practices for the most part. So there is a certainly, there is a message from above, from the health system and our overarching partner to do more of this without a lot of direction or resources to make it happen. So I have to apologize that I also run COVID testing for my health network. And if I'm bopping on and off video, it's because I'm handling those fires. So thanks for doing this. I appreciate this.
Thanks, Amy. CJ.
I'm CJ Peak. I'm part of the BRIC team that's putting this on with Tony. I'm from the University of Minnesota and been involved in building research capacity there for some time.
Okay, thank you. And Dave Schneider.
Forgot I was muted. I'm Dave Schneider. I'm the chair of family and community medicine at University of Texas Southwestern in Dallas, and have been part of the BRIC team since we started BRIC years ago, and I'm one of the facilitators today.
Thanks, Dave. Looks like I do want to introduce a person from our shop here at VCU who's been a principal in helping to get this organized from our end. That's Harris Middleton.
Hey, thank you all so much for joining us too. And I know I've communicated with a lot of you all via email, so it's nice to meet you all virtually via Zoom. I work in administration at VCU and help out with the division of our researchers and
Okay, thank you, Harris. Next person I'm seeing is Irf Asif.
Hey, my name's Irf. I'm the chair of family and community medicine at UAB in Birmingham, Alabama. Have had, I guess, a different career in research, mainly in sports medicine. So most of my research has been in sudden cardiac death in athletes and trying to get people to be more physically active. Very interested in trying to get departments to build research capacity, and have had a chance to get to know some of these folks on the call, and would be happy to try to help others build research capacity as well.
Thank you. And Lynn Meadows.
Hello, everyone from Canada. I'm Lynn Meadows. I belong to a Department of Community Health Sciences at the University of Calgary. Although I'm retired, I continue to do research in a couple of areas, and I'm happy to support anyone on the research journey. It's an exciting one and a challenging one, but we're here to help.
Okay, thank you. Joyce Robert.
Hey everyone, how are you? I'm Joyce Robert. I'm core faculty in Long Island, Mount Sinai, South Nassau Family Medicine Residency Program. And I'm interested, I think someone mentioned earlier, I didn't get a lot of guidance with research, but I know that's something that they look at in terms of promotion and scholarly activities. So I'm definitely interested in knowing more and even having a possible mentor, a research mentor.
Very good.
Thank you.
And I see a familiar name, Mark Johnson.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm the chair professor of community and family medicine at Howard University. And I've been interested in research development for primary care for my entire career, going back to my days as a Robert Wood Johnson clinical scholar back in the early 80s.
Thank you, Mark. Glad you can be with us. Let's see. Looks like Meg Curran is next on my list.
Hey everybody, I'm Meg Curran from Maine Medical Center in Portland. I'm here with Tina Holt, who's on another line, who's our research director. I'm a core faculty member in the Family Medicine Residency Program. And I'm hoping to learn how to get everybody in the department a little bit more involved in research.
Okay, very good. Then I'll, since you mentioned that Tina Holt is your colleague there, we'll go to Tina Holt. Tina, it looks like you're just on the phone. Hopefully you're hearing me. I see you as muted.
Okay, there. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm on a phone for the audio, and I'm on a computer without a camera. I apologize for that. I'm from Maine Medical Center. I've been here about 15 years. I'm the research director for our department, and we have great collaborations across our institution, but we have a lot to learn because we're a very community-oriented academic center, and I had the pleasure and privilege of working with a lot of VCU people during the GGP that I did about 10 years ago, and I'm interested in finding ways to do just what Meg mentioned, which is promote more academic productivity and scholarly work among the faculty and our staff in the non-residency parts of our department. So I'm excited.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Let's see, who haven't I? Richard Sadowski, if I pronounced that properly.
Sounds like it's well done. And my name is Rick Sadowski. I'm a professor of family medicine at the Downstate Health Science University in Brooklyn, New York. I'm here as a longtime faculty member in that department and a researcher in the field of men's health and men's sexual health. I think the thing I'd like to learn a little bit more or try and illustrate is that in our department, we have a few faculty members who are very interested in academic promotion and a large number of faculty members who are not so interested in academic promotion and are very happy to remain clinicians. And the issue for us is that we have a few very productive people and a lot of not very unproductive people by choice. So that's our concern, here at our institution.
Okay. Is there anyone on this Zoom call whose name I haven't called out?
I was Pete Seidenberg.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pete.
Yeah, no problem.
What happens, Pete, on my list is that the names keep flipping around and I lose my place.
So no worries. I'm the chair of family medicine at Louisiana State University in Shreveport, and I'm part of the BRIC team for the last 2 years.
Thank you, Pete. Sorry about that. And I do see another name that I don't remember having called on, and that name just moved rapidly. Oh, this is interesting. Amanda, is it Vaglia?
Yes, I'm a bit late here. I guess we're doing introductions. I am a rural family medicine physician, and I am the developing program director for a new rural family medicine program in Western Pennsylvania. And in looking at faculty development and scholarly activity, I look around in doing that in a rural setting is a little bit challenging. And so I'm here to learn as much as I can.
Okay, very good. Anyone else whose name I haven't called?
Amy, I saw you had your hand raised too for a second. Do you have a question?
Okay, so I've been taking quick notes as we've gone through this, and if I'm correct, and if we have Meg and Tina as a sort of a team from the same institution, we have 6 separate institutions with a variety of needs. As I mentioned early on, we had had a structure and a process plan in mind for this, but with only 6 individuals, and we have, well, we've only used up 20 minutes. We got 70 minutes left. We could, I think it would make more sense for individuals to talk more about their context and maybe to reiterate and to elaborate on what they would need from the discussion that we are having together today in order to inform a plan for action at their academic unit, like the next thing that they're going to do to move things along. So if everybody's okay with that, I'm just going to go in the order that I have it on my sheet. Harris, I would like your help in keeping track of the timing of this. I'm guessing maybe 10 minutes per person before we move along. So if you could help me do that, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
And Amy, especially since I didn't remember you from Fairfax, but could you go first?
Oh, Amy, I think you're muted too.
Tony, it's possible she got called out. She said she was
you're
staffing
correct.
the.
Yeah, you were correct. All right, then we'll skip down to Joyce then. Joyce Robert. Could you again remind us of your context and try to sort of elaborate on what you need from this discussion in order to take an action step?
So for me, like I said, I'm from South Nassau, Mount Sinai, South Nassau. We're located in Oceanside, New York. We're an academic residency program. And I've been core faculty for almost 10 years now. And even as a resident, research never truly interested me. So I think I sort of avoided it. And like someone mentioned, definitely with Mount Sinai, in order for you to get promoted from like assistant professor to associate professor, they look at your clinical, your education, and your research. So that's like a big part, not a big part, but that's like a significant part if you want to get promoted within the ranks, as well as with ACGME requirements with scholarly activity and Mount Sinai requirements. They want us to like have 2 PubMed articles or 1 PubMed article per 2 years. And like, I need very basic, like below basic, like ABC. Like, I don't know where to start. It's an expectation, but I think for me, I would need to like collaborate with someone and they would lead me through each step of what I need to do. Because I think right now it's just like, just do it. But like, I don't even know where to start, honestly. So for me, it's just.
Is your need a personal need, or is your need on behalf of your academic unit involves other faculty members as well?
Both, because as faculty for our sponsoring institution, their recommendation is 1 PubMed every 2 years. So that's like work. And I think also personally, I would like to, put out something that's something that I'm interested in. So it goes both ways. I think more for like work related and promotion related, this needs to be done. But also personally, I think I'm hitting a step where I do want to kind of step into more research and be more knowledgeable in that area.
Okay. Can you say more about what you see as opportunities within your context to get these needs met?
So we do a lot of quality improvement. So the residents and faculty are very involved in that. So the way it works for our program, we have about like 9 performance improvement projects that we look into diabetes, A1C, we look at our vaccination rates. So I know we have data there. but I wouldn't know how to like bring a quality improvement project into something like a research project, into something that could be published. But I know that for us, that will probably be something that we can start off with, but I just don't know how to transfer it. We do posters, and I presented at FMEC many years, but that's just like, you know, stuff that I'm interested in, I'll write, and we kind of do like, I do discussion panels, seminars, or through FMEC, and I've done that for many years, but nothing sort of beyond that, like publication sort of thing.
Okay. I invite others among the facilitator group to help with this discussion.
Thanks, Tony. This is Dave Schneider. What are you passionate about?
So definitely, so even with FMEC, I did talk about maternal morbidity, mortality, health disparities. I'm interested in like community health, breastfeeding health, lactation.
So like a good family doc, you've got a fair number of interests that are pretty broad.
Right, yeah.
You really are interested in, so that's a good place to start. Is anyone else doing research in your institution, in your unit?
Not really. There's some people who may do like book chapters, like the review book chapters. I know there are things in the works, but nothing like as final like publication. I think people are doing different projects, but nothing has been out yet.
Are there any folks not in your department that are doing research?
I would say so, but I don't know anyone in particular. I haven't heard anything in particular, but I think so. I think within our, at least with the internal medicine department, and maybe through the OB department, there may be some research there, but I don't know any like further particulars or about what they're doing.
Because those would potentially be good partners to work with. Especially one of the areas you mentioned was health disparities and maternal mortality. So if there's someone in OB that's already looking at issues around maternal mortality, you could, a fairly straightforward or quick way to get started is to look at the clinical database that I'm sure your hospital's amassing, and see if you can partner with someone in OB around that issue, to do a quick data query, for instance, from, I don't know if you use Epic or what electronic record you got.
We have, I'm familiar with Epic, but we use Sunrise.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
EMR, yeah.
I used that 20 years ago down in San Antonio. That's like a glorified typewriter at that point.
Pretty much. And also,
yeah.
I mentioned, so even like small journals, like I don't know if anyone's here from New York, we have like our state, you know, journal, like New York State Family Doctor. So I put maybe some articles there, but they're not PubMed. So they count for scholarly activity, but not for the level that like Sinai is looking for.
Right. So you want to go ahead and get them published in a journal that is indexed.
Right.
And so partnering with someone who's already doing some research in these other disciplines, either medicine, because some of the topics you mentioned would be applicable to medicine as well. So I would look in these two other departments and see who is doing some research, who has some research skills there, and knows how to gather the data, or get a data query run that you could do some analysis on, especially around health disparities. That's a nice thing, because they're probably already collecting data on things like race and ethnicity.
Right.
And the other demographics, age, you know, so maybe some socioeconomic data about the patients you all care for. And that would be a nice way to at least get started, to do some of your own research. So is there someone charged with doing research in your department? With overseeing research, with encouraging research, or are you, by this interest in research, the de facto research director?
No, we don't have any research director.
Do you have a department chair? And program?
No.
You must have a program director.
Oh, we do, of course, yeah.
Because you're in
Yes, we do, but
So,
mhm.
so I mean, you know, it's an interesting challenge in community. So you're in a community-based program affiliated with Sinai.
Yep.
Who's the chair at Sinai now? Do you have an academic? Do you have an academic appointment at the university?
Yes.
Yeah. Neil Kalman is the chair at Mount Sinai.
Yes, yeah. I used to work with Dr. Kalman back in Harlem.
Which is great, you know him.
Yeah. We did. I did residency at Beth Israel, so he was, you know, yes.
Yeah, one of the faculty there then. So it might be worth talking with him and connecting with someone back in the academic department and seeing if there's resources there of at least people that could help guide you through the IRB process.
Yes, that's another, yep.
You know, and this is one of the tough parts. I know, Lynn, you were going to talk a little bit about the getting started one this afternoon. But I mean, when you really are getting started from scratch, because there's almost nobody, you're a lone ranger essentially. You have to connect with folks that at least have the skills and the interest, or who could provide some resources for you. I will bet that at Mount Sinai, they have some departmental resources that you could partner with to at least do some of the things we're talking about in your own institution, like getting a clinical database from your own EHR data. It would be a great resource.
I can just interrupt. Harris, how are we doing on time?
Almost at 10 minutes now.
Right, that's what I figured. Joyce, what I'm going to also do for you, as well as others that are participating, is I'm going to send a link to a series of articles that was in the Journal of Clinical Epidemiology on writing for publication. And it's a very practical set of one-pagers of here's where you start, this is what comes next, et cetera, et cetera. So that could be helpful. I'm going to move to another person and invite someone else from our facilitator team to jump in and begin the conversation. Let me go back to see it. And we may be able to come back to you as well, Joyce. We'll see how this all rolls out. Is Amy available? Not hearing that, I will move along then. Mark Johnson, you're next on my list. And I will pick on CJ Peak to begin the conversation with you.
I'm here to help. I don't have a particular need.
Oh, I should have known because you've been doing this for a long time. Okay,
that makes it very easy for me to help.
You're an honorary facilitator then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
TJ got off early.
Yeah. Well, we next are going to go to the Maine group, Meg and Tina. And CJ, I'm going to put you back in front to at least begin the conversation and then invite other facilitators. I want to involve as many of our facilitator team as I can.
Okay, so Meg and Tina at Portland at Maine Med. So I think Maggie said you were really interested in having getting everyone in a department moving with research, and you know that's a great ambition as far as I can tell. That was something that we tried to do in Minnesota as well, and I'm wondering if you can tell me sort of what have you done so far, and just in a second, what have you done so far, and what's been your experience with that, introducing that idea?
Well, Tina just got paged, but I'm sure she'll have more opinions than I get when she gets back. But one of the big things we tried doing a couple of years ago was, so going back, all of our residents and fellows are required to do a research project, which probably most of your fellows and residents are. Most of ours choose to take on like a non-QI research project. A lot of them like to go and develop their own thing to study of some sort. And something we chose to do several years ago was our faculty said, hey, we really want to do more research. We want to do it because it's a good thing to do. We want to do it so we can get promoted. Our academic affiliate is Tufts University School of Medicine. And so we really tried to get learners connected with faculty to help advance their research. And so we tried at some way to basically say, okay, every resident has to do a research project, and each of them has to identify a faculty mentor. We tried connecting them with medical students, like maybe a medical student could come and do some of your data cleaning or whatever for a summer, and they can get their name on a poster or something like that. Some of the barriers we've sort of run into with that is that there are some faculty who are more interested than others. There are some faculty who are more skilled than others. Very few, but everyone basically besides Tina doesn't have formal research training beyond what they did during residency. And so I think there's a lot of enthusiasm, but not always a lot of like, well, what do I do next? Right. And Tina, I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, I would only say that one of the advantages that we have in our system as a clinical site for the residency is that we have a lot of other programs. We're a pretty large community-sized hospital with a lot of other residency programs, but we don't have a nearby official university setting. And so everybody is learning and training and working in a very clinically oriented and teaching-oriented environment. So the same thing that Joyce was mentioning about the requirements for scholarly work, we don't have a lot of pressure on ourselves to even get appointed, let alone promoted within the academic system. Like, there's a desire that we do that, but it's a several-year process, and it's not something that has been prioritized over the last 10 years. So this content collaboration that we discussed, that the faculty want to be more involved, but they're really all in the position of wanting to know, how can I take what I'm doing anyway? Because they're all doing teaching projects. They're all being kind of content bounce off people for the projects that our residents do, which are very broadly covering lots of different primary care areas, but just making that hurdle of turning it into something that gets published or is a national presentation hasn't really been prioritized because nobody has an extra minute to do it. And so Meg is, she's the usual, that's what my nights and weekends are for kind of researcher, and she's got particularly, a lot of enthusiasm for our faculty, having, transitioned from chief resident to being faculty and doing research and facilitating research along the way. But I find myself not wanting to, sound like a little bit of a whipper and say, well, why don't you just go look at this wonderful posting that we put on the web or in Canvas or whatever, or watch a webinar. So we'd really love to know if other groups have found ways to, either in a group way or one-on-one, walk those people with the interest through things more easily. Kind of like what Joyce was saying, like, how do I make those connections? We have the connections, but we don't really know how to turn it into that culture of inquiry that we really desire everybody to benefit from.
Well, let me just throw out just a few things that you grab onto, just maybe in this amount of time, just something to get you thinking about it. First of all, I recognize the thing about where residents and faculty are really in uneven places in a residency program. And so one possibility is to let everybody grow together and not assume that the faculty are going to be smarter than the residents, because in our experience, it's often not true. And that you're raising the whole group together. And one way to get it started is the culture of inquiry. It's like, look, everybody is fascinated about something. Everybody is curious about, just like go through a day and write down when you were curious about, gee, why does this? Why do my patients do this? Why in teaching is this happen? And then everybody's curious. And then we'll start with where the passions are. And then we'll have people ask a question. And then we can use QI things. It just like we'll just add a little bit to QI to make it QI research. And then there's articles to say, here's how you turn a QI thing into a Q, but it's still what you do. And so the idea is also appeal to what's already matters in terms of clinical, educational, and system priorities, because those are the things that if you investigate them, there'll be a tailwind. Everybody already cares. There's already money being spent. People are already being judged on it. And you're offering to come in with some real evidence where normally decisions are made by management with or without evidence. You might as well have some. And then you raise everybody together. Like I said, don't assume the faculty are on top. It's a cultural thing. It's equal opportunity. And so then what you get is shooting for this, that, well, I know that it's very common to, it's like, say, give assignment, everybody has to publish something, and then everybody has to do this. But you know what, a goal you might consider is, like, we want our scholarship to be internally proposed. That is, here's what I'm interested in, here's what I'm fascinated with. Not externally imposed. Now, you might have, you know, ACGME are going to require that, but that's not what's going to move people, is the requirement. What's going to move them is my internally proposed scholarship, because, you know, I'm curious and I actually want to find out stuff. So I'll stop there. And there's resources we could send you to that on every one of those things I've mentioned. So I'll just stop there and see, like, so how does that hit you?
Well, I'm laughing out loud because I like the idea that it won't hurt to have the decisions made about quality metrics and those types of things made with data that comes from our place. And I think the way it hits me is that sounds good. And I guess I'll ask Meg to reflect on whether or not she thinks that our approach currently is kind of using that idea of bringing everybody up together, or not enough.
I think so. I think we do have a naturally curious gang. I mean, we're all doctors, probably are all like that. But I think that the residents, we really do encourage them. Like, we want you to come up with this project that you're curious about. I think the hard thing, at least the thing I struggle with, or I hear more about from the faculty, is that they feel like they don't have another like inch of bandwidth to give to this. And then when they hear, oh crap, well, Tufts is making me do, or the ACGME or whoever is making me do X number of publications or X number of presentations, then it, that like piling on feeling of like, well, I don't feel like I have any extra bandwidth to add to this, even though I have some questions. And now I feel like you're forcing me to. That is a cycle I don't know how to fix.
Hey, this is Tony. If I could jump in briefly on that point. One of the things that I've been interested in is learning how primary care practices can have workflow designs, and if you have appropriate staffing models and the ability to support those staffing models, to take a lot of work away from the clinicians, and also to try to reduce the amount of work that's happening in between office visits. And that just gives people breathing room. So if I can just briefly put in a plug for Steps Forward, which is an AMA website that has a bunch of modules on that point. I'm just saying that that's another thing to potentially explore is, are your clinician faculty so consumed by the demands of clinical practice as well as teaching? And is there an opportunity to try to create breathing room in the clinical space?
Yes, I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that for sure. We are undergoing a thing that's called clinical transformation to some primary care teams, and the idea would be to do exactly what you're describing and this fabulous goal of everybody working to the top of their license. I think coronavirus put a huge wrench in many of the plans that we had for team-based care and collaboration, but we are working on stuff that's going to be around a lot longer than coronavirus. So your suggestion is a good one.
I mentioned privately to Harris that, and Joyce, you're going to get 2 more minutes at least. But with Mark identifying himself as a potential facilitator and not needing a conversation, that gives an additional 10 minutes to the remaining 5. So we've got 12 minutes now per discussion.
Well, I guess one other thing I'll just say, and it's not something that we're working on right this minute, but we do have a new director of research at our affiliated Maine Medical Center Research Institute, and that is a quite large organization that does a lot of laboratory-based and animal-based research. They also have a lot of collaborations with our critical care teams, and there's always been a desire to grow translational research, and so we now have a new leader of that part of our organization, and in the process of searching her out, it's Elizabeth Jacobs, for any of you who know her, who comes from internal medicine and has done a lot of primary care research and practice-based research network work. I think we are also thinking about what would be a wise way to involve ourselves in developing that type of research project that isn't growing out of our clinical minute-to-minute experience or out of our residents' projects, but thinking about our system in a bigger way and thinking about clinical trials or thinking about pragmatic trials that cross outside of just our immediate clinical area. And so I don't necessarily think I'm ready to understand what that's all about, but if any of those of you who've been doing this longer can point me to some websites and research advice about involving primary care settings in those kinds of projects and trials, I would appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to have to turn to next, and Larry Bauer just made me aware that we have 2 additional folks who have joined us, and Larry says they're both from the same family medicine residency. I got to make sure I'm getting this right, so helper glasses. Doug Spots and Aaron George, are you both on our Zoom session now?
I'm here, Doug.
Okay.
And there's Aaron.
Just so you know, we've gotten into a sequence of individual people talking about what their needs are and having a discussion about that could inform action steps. But we've gone through introductions. I'm not going to repeat that, of course, but Doug, can I start with you? Could you introduce yourself briefly and your context and what your need is?
Sure, and then I think Aaron, and then also if he didn't introduce himself yet, or if he is also linked to us as one of our first-year residents, Christopher Larimore is on. So, so my official role here is Vice President, Chief Health Officer. We are a new program and have just welcomed our 2nd class, and of course are recruiting our 3rd class. And you know, FMEC has been very instrumental in helping us be the newest program and only rural program in Maryland, presently in Hagerstown. So we're sort of in that unique part of the state that has a tri-state sort of influence and border region. I am a family doc of 25 years, and then in the last 7 to 8 have been increasing my role in physician executive roles. And so I was recruited here not initially to start the residency program, but about 4 weeks into the new job, that came my way. And so it's been actually a really great part of my my job here, which includes the Meritus-owned practices, both primary care and specialty practices, community health, employee health now, and well-being, and population health efforts, as well as the residency. So I'm here as a learner and a supporter, and I'll stop there and pass the ball to Aaron George.
Hey all, Aaron George, also here at Meritus Health in Hagerstown, Maryland. We are a new and emerging program, also a new health system for graduate medical education and scholarly work. So we've at the point now starting to welcome our 3rd class through interviews and with plans that they'll join us in July. And we really want to drive scholarly work. It's really important to us. We think that for a community-based hospital, we have about 300 beds, and the system had never really had a cohesive research strategy before. We want to wrap the residency and our graduate medical education office around research and scholarly work. We know that there's islands of research in the community and in the system, and we want to bring them together. I've recently been elevated to the Associate Chief Medical Officer role, and so I'm trying to straddle some of the administration alongside Dr. Spots and the residency as well. And we have some eager new residents who've joined us, including Dr. Larimore, who I'll pass the baton to just now as well.
You can't hear you, Chris.
I'm sorry, I think you're muted.
Chris, come in here. Come into my office and say hi.
Okay.
Chris, we're social distancing, but we're closer than you'd believe.
While Chris is doing that, I'll just add that, you know, it's unique in that just in a short period of time, we have 2 family doctors across the system of this community hospital. And so what we're building is really, really exciting from that standpoint, and a CEO who comes from a population health standpoint, and a culture of Lean Six Sigma, but really ready to transform and go to the next step beyond process improvement to real scholarly work and more. So I see Chris is with us. We'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think my laptop's having some issues with sound, but I'm a first-year family medicine resident. I have some research background, or experience rather, a couple of research fellowships, a couple of projects that I've done in several publications. So my interest is research. It's not my only interest, but it's one of my interests. And here at this facility, there's a lot of support, and I'm kind of eager to develop, you know, serve in any capacity that I can, but also to develop the interest of research that I have with my co-residents, as well as other medical professionals in the hospital. I don't know how realistic it is, but I'm kind of eager to see if I can sort of stimulate some of the nursing staff or just any other medical professional to get involved with research and share the passion I have for it. So that's me.
It's a great start to have that kind of level of interest and commitment. I'm going to say welcome to the discussion, but also want to turn back to the folks who we had gotten to know earlier. And Amanda, we're going to turn to you and have you tell us a little bit more about the new rural residency that you're getting started in Western Pennsylvania. And can I ask Lynn Meadows to begin the conversation?
Okay, thanks, Tony. One of the things, no, well, I'll leave that for later. Amanda, can you tell me something about the interests in your department, in your community, that people might have to do with research, or do you have a sense of a direction you'd like to take?
We don't necessarily have any research going on within our hospital. We have a university in our town that has a research center. Interestingly, we have teamed up in relation to COVID and have done some projects together that it seems strange that a university and a hospital system would be in the same town and not really walk across the street or have much to do with each other. The nursing students from that organization come over to our hospital to do some of their clinical training. But as far as, you know, other than we care for some of the professors as our patients, we really don't have a lot of direct contact with them. So in our residency development, one of the things that we wanted to do was to take advantage of all the resources available since we are a rural program. And so we have been in discussions with the food and nutrition department, with the psychology department, actually even with the applied theater department, and doing some empathy programs with residents. And we are still working on our accreditation, so we don't have any residents available here yet. So what we would be doing the faculty development, and we're trying to get as much in motion before the residents get here as we can, because I'm sure that once they arrive, it's like preparing for a baby, right? You get everything ready, you have the room set up, because you're going to be very busy once they get here. So we're trying to lay as much groundwork as we can in preparation for them to arrive. So one of the things, for instance, we're doing a collaborative project with the university. They had the available PCR equipment. They brought that over to the hospital, and we've been running PCR in-house with the university. One of our faculty, future faculty, is involved in that process and had considered sort of writing it up as an example of how a small community can collaborate together and work together. But as far as even just where to get started, we aren't sure what to tell him about where to get started with that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I have to ask you what a PCR is. It's not a term I'm familiar with.
Oh, the polymerase chain reaction, the testing process for the COVID testing. So they brought their fancy scientific equipment from the biology department over and put it into the hospital lab to run the actual PCR test, the PCR testing for the COVID. And so that wasn't something that we had available in-house. We'd always been sending things out. And so whenever all of the testing became backed up, our testing was taking weeks to get back for as much of the country. And one of the solutions one of our physicians who was leading the COVID team said, hey, you know, have we talked with the people across the street and asked them if they have a PCR machine available, if it would be the right kind? Could we run, what would we need to get testing started over here? And so, you know, they reached out, and this is an example of a collaboration that we've done that's worked out really well. And so using the resources we have available in that regard.
Right, and I think that's very right thinking as you're moving towards a culture of inquiry. One of the things that we often suggest is that people do an environmental scan of their environment. So for instance, potential departments, or not departments, but potential other people with whom you could collaborate, such as you've done with the PCR. That's a good starting point. And I could certainly send you the document. What it essentially does is help you think about where people that you could potentially collaborate with. Are they in shared physical space at all? Are there, in my mind, resources such as someone who knows something about managing data? Things sometimes as simple as a computer, or just very basic resources that we all need to pull together, but don't necessarily individually or as a small group have the money or the resource itself. If you can continue to develop these relationships and collaborations, then once you get a certain amount of trust going, as you've done very obviously with the PCR, then you can begin, for instance, if one person has funding for someone to work with data, if someone else doesn't have the funding for that but has some data, you can do some sharing. It sounds to me like there's potential, with guidance, of course, for looking at the way that you have innovated in doing the testing during the need and during the COVID pandemic, and perhaps saying, how did this roll out differently between the hospital and between your community, something like that.
Amanda, you mentioned something that intrigued me. You talked about the fact that although you don't have residents yet, you want to be doing faculty development for the residency faculty. Can you say more about what you have in mind?
For instance, here at our hospital, we have medical students, and we've been working to increase the number of medical students here on our campus. We've been trying to provide more structure for those medical students, things like morning reports and journal clubs. And for instance, tomorrow evening, we're having a presentation from the Pennsylvania State Medical Society, and I knew that it was happening. The topic is resilience. And so instead of just letting it sort of pass by as a, oh, by the way, we've created it to be more of a wellness activity for our faculty, for the people at the hospital. And so essentially, I guess what we're trying to do is change the culture, and we are changing the culture from a small town community hospital to a small town education center. And in small ways, like changing that one encounter to be a wellness activity. Honestly, some of the vocabulary used within ACGME, used within training institutions, all of it is a vocabulary that our attendings are not, our medical staff is not even aware of the vocabulary. So to even give them the vocabulary to wrap their head around the concept, even the idea of having wellness activities is foreign to most of our medical staff. And so in training, as you mentioned, a lot of times there will be opportunities where the learner becomes the teacher. And as educators, I'm sure we're all very, very well aware of that concept. So in having the residency, we will end up teaching the medical staff, teaching people how to have better level of wellness. So those are all sorts of things that we're trying to prepare in advance so that whenever the residents are here, the culture is already partially established.
Okay, that sounds great. We have just a few minutes before moving on to the next individual. I would invite any of our facilitators, or for that matter, anybody else on this group to either pose any questions or make any suggestions for Amanda.
Does anyone have a specific resource? I know that we had talked earlier, some type of resource that does start with step A, step B, step C, that breaks everything down. The resources that you had mentioned, sending one-page resources, those might be good, or a faculty development program that's already put together that I could share with the folks for faculty development.
I will send everybody that the link to the, I think it's 12 different one-pagers on writing for publication. And CJ, I think, has materials as well that be relevant for what you're talking about.
That would be great.
Okay. I'm going to move now to Rick from Downstate, who told us about how he has a few faculty that are really doing well with research, and a large number of faculty who have little activity and apparently little interest, and wants to help to create a culture of inquiry. Pete, I would invite you to begin the conversation and maybe pull in some other facilitators.
Okay, so I'm just happy to talk about this a little bit. I am a longtime faculty member at a large inner city medical center in Brooklyn, New York, the Downstate Medical Center. It's a medical school, it's a huge hospital, and it's a very needy patient population. Probably about 30 years ago, I asked our 18 residents at that time, how many of you are interested in doing some research? And 2 people raised their hands. 2 of the residents raised their hands out of the 18. So I learned very early in my time as a faculty member that I'm not sure that people who go into family medicine really have the sense of inquiry often that is going to lead to significant research. And one of the other things I've learned, over time, and I guess I'm talking about blockades here, is that although those of us who discuss, who have passion and talk about passion and ask about other people's passion, they can be passionate. That doesn't mean they want to work really hard to either improve things or get answers to things. They may have a sense of inquiry, but they may be very satisfied going to an evidence-based website and trying to get the answer to their inquiry, or doing a literature search to inquiry. So, I mean, I talk about passion too, and I've got a graduate degree and did a research project for that. And my mentor got me to choose a topic by talking about my passions. So I'm a believer in that. I'm also a believer in motivational interviewing. It doesn't work on every patient. As a matter of fact, with the patient population we have in Brooklyn, it probably works on less than a quarter. So, you know, I think those of us who talk about speaking to our residents and fellow faculty about passion have to try and think of some other approaches also, because passion doesn't necessarily develop, or passion doesn't evolve into the desire of allocating time to a research project that may be very foreign, or a process that's very foreign, you know, to that particular individual. So, you know, I've kind of learned a lot about it. However, I'm using certainly some of the techniques that I've discussed before. I do believe in discussing with people passion. But I guess my main inquiry here, other than the statement I've just made, is that we have a very busy group of faculty members. We have a very needy patient population. We have a medical school that does prioritize research, but is willing to think of primary care clinicians as clinicians, and sort of have developed an alternative promotion mechanism. And frankly, I was part of developing that promotion. The final things I'd like to mention is that some of the advantages that we have to do a better job in getting across to potential researchers, in my mind, is the information that's available from our patient population, the information that's available from studying our medical students, or even from studying our own residents. There's an active educational program and research program here at the Downstate Medical Center on teaching medical students. And very often, our department, which plays a fairly large role in that, gets involved in trying to help develop new medical education techniques. And we have successfully published a number of articles, both our department as well as educators at the medical center. So, you know, I think one of the routes of minor success that we have is trying to get our faculty and residents to actually look at our patient population and try and identify an issue there. Now, obviously, it could be an issue that they are passionate about, but it could just be an issue that they feel is an unmet need, you know, among our patient population, and we try and help them identify that. So the very last thing I'd like to say is that I'm starting to learn, especially even from today's conversation that's happening right here, is that we all need very individualized approaches. Everybody's at very different levels in very different situations with very different resources and levels of passion and inquiry. So, you know, I think that we need to encourage each of us to try and, you know, look at what are our potential strengths, you know, in this area, and try and build on that. I guess my comment about this is that perhaps a single method cookbook is not going to work for all of us. There have to be a bunch of different cookbooks. But I guess my reason for being here and my issue is to try and look for alternative ways to get residents and physicians interested who are very busy, who don't have the type of passion that leads to identifying a project to which they can dedicate time or have an interest in dedicating time. Any suggestions would be welcome.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is a culture issue. So there's not a pervasive culture of academic inquiry. And so you want to foster that culture of curiosity. You have resistance to it from your established faculty. So what you often have to do is, instead of starting at the top, actually start at the bottom. And so when I was previously at Penn State in one of the regional campuses, new residency program, people said, I went into family medicine because I didn't want to do research. I have no interest in this. I have no experience with this. And so what I did was I started as the research director. I started with the interns. I developed the curriculum, and I called it the culture of curiosity, and I called myself the curator of curiosity, to try to take that big scary R of research and make it a little r. And I started with QI and put methodology behind the QI and used that as the entry point into research. But I also had the top support of my chairman. And so if you have the top support of your chair, and then you start at the grassroots, in 1 year, we changed the culture. Now that was unusual. It usually takes about 2 years to change a culture. But you also want to be strategic in it, and you want to change your curriculum so that you have the culture of curiosity infused into your curriculum. So into your workshops and didactics for your residents. And then you make those residents identify a faculty mentor. And that brings the faculty along. And so it's also going to take extra time on your part, because it sounds like you're the person doing the research already. And so you're going to need to spend time mentoring not just the residents, but also the faculty. So what I did is I had regular meetings on at least a quarterly basis with every resident and every faculty member to try to develop the research and to help remove the barriers to it.
Well, I mean, again, those are good suggestions, and some of which we probably could do. I guess I would like to say that we've had a couple of false starts trying to do these things.
Sure.
And it may have to do with periods of turnover of faculty members, periods of turnover of chairs, variations in institutional priorities. But those are good suggestions, certainly. And I think starting early, would be a good idea.
So does your chair support the idea, or does he want to see research develop in the department?
Well, I guess our situation is somewhat unique in the sense that over the past 4 years, we've not had a stable chair. We now have a new chair. And I suspect that that's happening in some of the other programs that may be represented here, or who would have liked to have been represented here. That your programs, you who are mentors, may have had the advantage of stable leadership. And that makes it very helpful. I guess one issue would be, what does a department do that doesn't have stable leadership? There are unique problems occurring in family medicine units all over the country. But
the leadership
support is important, yes.
Right, well, the leader sets the tone.
Yes.
So if your new chair wants to see research develop, if that's one of the things he was brought in to do, or she was brought in to do, I'm not sure which institution you're affiliated with and who your chair is, then you're more likely to see it develop.
Right.
And then having a point person within the department, I assume that's you, who is charged with getting research going, changing that culture, because the chair alone can't do it. They need support from faculty. And then part of it is, so when I got here at TUT, University of Texas, about 3.5 years ago, I mean, it's an institution that's known for its research, but family medicine had done almost no research in almost 10 years. And they had, like you were talking about, I wouldn't say unstable leadership, but they had an interim chair for almost 5 years. And so he wasn't given the power, not to say he didn't want to see research develop, he wasn't given the power to, or the resources to get it to develop. But I came in with a specific charge, and part of that charge was to get research going, as it fits with the culture of the entire institution. And it took, as Pete said, quite a while to get the research going and get over some of the barriers, especially the cultural barriers.
Well, thank you all. I'm going to be a timekeeper and move us now to our final discussion with the group from Meritus. And in terms of facilitators, I would especially invite Irf and Mark to be active in this conversation. Others are, of course, welcome.
Great. Yeah, I think Doug, Aaron, just maybe hearing from you guys what is the most pressing, or what are the pressing issues that you face, and where would you like help?
I think we're in the process of establishing graduate medical education office. There's a strong nursing presence and culture that already has a modestly robust research council that they have integrated. We don't have a strong primary care or graduate medical education presence in research. So the individuals on this call represent a number of those that are really invested in this, but the system's behind us. So there's a desire to push this forward. If I were to ask any questions for help, I think the thought would be if this group would be willing to share just kind of collected either documents for awareness of the value of research from a residency, ways to coordinate interprofessionally with across the system and across disciplines as well. I don't know, I'll turn over to Doug and Chris to see if they want to share anything else as well.
Yeah, I think Chris would maybe have something to share along these lines, but I would just say that we started sort of traditionally with an academic partner with West Virginia's College of Osteopathic Medicine. And of course, through the joint accreditation process, have pretty much an equal balance. We're maintaining an osteopathic, component, but we are looking, to strengthen an academic partner, and that could be within the state of Maryland, or it could be in Pennsylvania as well. Those are our greatest opportunities, and not that immediately overnight increases sort of the connection and resources, but I think it might strengthen them somewhat more than what we sort of have regionally right now. And you would maybe ask yourself, and there may be other Marylanders on the line, well, Hopkins is nearby and University of Maryland is nearby, but there hasn't been a real collaborative network, I'd say, around research, and particularly in family medicine research in the state. However, we could spur that on both for ourselves, but for others, I think my mind goes to how can we connect the dots.
Mm-hmm. Well, just kind of hearing your story, I think some of the pieces are that it looks like you have representation at some different levels on the call. So you have folks at sort of the highest level within your institution, from what I can gather, as well as residents who might be interested. I think, as we've heard earlier from folks like Pete, you're trying to set a culture of inquiry. And what's nice is you may want to post that somewhere. That may be within your mission and vision statement, that might be within your website. But as you start to recruit residents, you not only have residents who share a passion for research who are on the call today in Chris, but you've got the key leaders, and that'll help you maybe recruit other residents in who also want to build that culture with you. I think what you're going to need to do is think about the resources that you have, and you started off by saying that population health was a major driver within your institution. So putting it in a framework of how do you answer the key questions that help your institution move forward. And I think particularly within quality measures, you can think about access measures, quality measures, cost efficiency measures, patient experience, provider experience. Those are the things that my assumption is those would be really powerful and meaningful to your institution. And if you can align your residents who might be the worker bees to get this done with the institutional values, I think that you'll be in great shape. Sounds like another resource is the nursing team. Maybe they have a bigger, research infrastructure, and so I find value in partnering with others. When I was in Greenville, South Carolina, as a vice chair of academics and research, I found that the surgery department had quite a few resources in terms of producing scholarly activity. And so I went to their vice chair, talked to them and said, hey, what kind of resources do you have in place? They talked about having a writer who was really good at regulatory work, as well as thinking about how you put together posters and manuscripts. They had a statistician who was really good with just sort of helping people with projects. And then I found a director of faculty development on campus who was very interested in trying to help residents and faculty get better. And so what we did is we created a scholarly activity committee within our residency. And that scholarly activity committee consisted of myself as well as those 3 individuals. And we started to meet with the residents on a quarterly basis to try to help them understand a project. And we even started to do that with faculty. Once they heard about the scholarly activity committee, they were then curious of, hey, could I meet with the scholarly activity committee? We met, I know it may not seem like a lot of time, but we met in 20-minute blocks over the lunch hour. So we would do 3 consultations within that 1-hour period. And then we tried to end with what a to-do item might be so that the next 3 months we could have them work on projects and sort of continue to move things. And similar to Pete, we set sort of milestones of what you want to do within the first year, which is really brainstorm a project. Year 2 is going to be, let's try to actually do the project. And then year 3 was, let's try to think about how we can publish or present that somewhere. We did that Scholarly Activity Committee, and that started to get notoriety around our institution. And we then took that to actually an institution-wide level where we created the same framework. And interestingly enough, they called it the IRF group, which is my nickname IRF, but they called it the Interprofessional Research Forum. And that was, again, a way that other folks within the institution could come. They would submit their ideas, and then this group, similar to how we're doing a Zoom call, they would give them feedback. And we had those as 2 30-minute blocks. So we did 2 of those a month. But I feel like your institution is sort of poised to do the same thing. You have partners who might be able to work with you with nursing. I think the collaboration, maybe the grants that you could write even together, because they might be thinking about population health or interprofessional education grants. Those might be the ones where I would start within what I'm hearing from your institution.
Thanks, Irv. Mark Johnson, are you still with us? And do you have any additional suggestions?
Yes, I am, and yes, I do. I'm glad to see a residency program in Hagerstown. It's relatively close to me. I was up there just a few weeks ago, and you have a beautiful museum there. If you have never checked it out, I think that the opportunities that you have for collaboration are large. You mentioned Johns Hopkins and University of Maryland, but you should also consider collaborating with Howard. There are several opportunities that come up in which people would like to add a rural population to our urban population, and so the issue of the data collection across regions is important. We have a strong cancer center, which is doing a lot of things that are related to the prevention that we do in family medicine that may be appropriate. So, if you wanted to do studies on smoking cessation, or on the other end of the spectrum, how do you get smokers in for low dose CT? What are the best communication strategies to encourage people to get colon cancer screening? all of those are things that we could help you with. We have a school of public health here. It's not a school of public health. We have a public health program, and we have many public health students that are looking for opportunities to do for projects and may be helpful to you. So we are 60 miles away or thereabouts, and we'll be glad to collaborate you on any projects for which we have a mutual interest.
Well, thank you, Mark. And we are close to the end of our time. I want to try to be respectful of that. Just to let you know, I'm pretty sure that Lynn Meadows and Pete Seidenberg are going to be involved in the process whereby we evaluate this session. So you'd be looking for some kind of communication around that. With the 5 minutes or so that we have left, are there any other questions that our participants have, those that came here looking to pose questions that maybe have bubbled up as you've listened to the various conversations?
Tony, this is Larry, and I have to say, because I know what folks at Meritus as a system are up to, and they have a project that Doug's involved with, and perhaps all of the folks from Meritus are involved with, where they're going to lead the health component of a major change in Hagerstown, Maryland. And they're going to, over a period of time, lose 1 million pounds. And it's a citywide effort that's being led by Meritus. And Doug, Aaron, and Christopher, I just have to believe that there's some research capability. I mean, when you're talking about 1 million pounds and the changes that will happen in the community as a result of that, I just have to believe that there's partners out there that will work with you, and that would be a fascinating focus. Talk about population health.
Yeah, I won't bog it down, but yes, I mean, that's obviously a place we're looking. If you look at Aaron and Christopher's pedigrees, they've done a lot more research than I have. I'm at a different point. I was in clinical practice, private practice, and then got into leadership roles. So for me, it's exciting and new. We have a CEO who believes that it's not just about population health in theory, it's putting it into action. So I think there will be a lot of opportunity. I appreciated, though, the feedback and other comments, and Mark, the partnering opportunities with Howard and DC. I specifically sort of called out Maryland, but yes, Washington, DC is not far away, and we get there often, and we'd welcome further conversation. So I would hope out of all of this, besides that useful feedback for us personally, the connections, the networking that I know Larry and team really make happen are always valuable. So thanks.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments from our participants before we close?
Seemed like a lot of our discussion today centered around creating a culture of inquiry. And I guess as some of the other facilitators were talking, it dawned on me that one question, we're all scientists, so we're all asking questions, and maybe the question that could help folks is to think about, how do we know we're doing a good job? I think just asking that question and seeing if it allows you to measure something, and then to see, again, did you move the needle? That doesn't seem maybe so hard to even someone who may not be interested in research.
Thanks, sir. Well, thank you all for this conversation. I hope our ability to kind of change our process on the fly has worked. I've certainly enjoyed listening to the conversations, and we'll be looking for your feedback. And if there are further discussions, we now have sort of made contact information widely available in this process. So we will be sending some materials as promised. But if folks that were part of the discussion today wanted to have further conversations with other participants or with our facilitators, we would welcome that.
On behalf of the FMEC, Tony, I want to thank you and your team. You've brought, as I was listening to the comments, it was I think it would have been a very different dynamic had it just been you talking with the people who are here looking for some guidance. I think bringing together a team of people with the talents and experiences that you have, I think that was really very powerful. So thank you to all of you for contributing, and thank you to Harris and Denise for your support of this. It wouldn't have happened without your help. So thank you all very much.
Absolutely. Okay. Be well.